If you're a wrestling fan under a certain age, say 35, you might not know of a time when there wasn't at least one wrestling pay-per-view every single month on the calendar. Back in the day, you had 4, maybe 5 big shows a year to look forward to in pay-per-view, but now, as we celebrate the recent 30th anniversary of this week's show, it's time to take you back to the point where it all blew up from here. We're going to look at the inaugural WWF In Your House pay-per-view from Mother's Day, May 14th, 1995 at the Onondaga County War Memorial, aka the War Memorial, in Syracuse, New York. This show was nominated by Jason Hurley over on patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. 95 is always an interesting time to talk about with the WWF. This is historically known as a terrible year for business, but of course there are seeds being planted to work toward what will eventually become their big boom period just a few years later. And one of those seeds is the implementation of the B-tier pay-per-views, the ones that go in between the big four, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, all those smaller shows, which we now know today as like Unforgiven and Backlash and No Mercy and Fully Loaded, and all those different shows. They began with the In Your House format, and the big hook about In Your House compared to the big four pay-per-views was that unlike the big shows, they were 3 hours long and they had a higher price point. These were going to be 2-hour shows at a greatly reduced price point of $14.95. And I love watching the promotion for this show. It's the first of its kind. You got Todd Pettengill in the control center saying, hey, wow, $14.95, what a great deal that is. That's less than what it would cost for a family of 4 to go to the movies, and the popcorn and the drinks, wow, that's really expensive. So hey, great family value right here with the World Wrestling Federation. I think it's funny there was a point in this company's history where they were really cost conscious toward the consumers and be like, hey, this is a great value for dollar. Wow, you can take the whole family out. What a great deal. And now, like 30 years later, they're selling, $1,000 nosebleed WrestleMania tickets and going, wow, we made so much money. Aren't we cool? 7,000 folks in the arena on this night. Pretty paltry gate of about $51,000. But what really impressed me was the number of pay-per-view buys for this show. It gets about 332,000 buys, which is a great number when you consider, this is an untested, unproven commodity for the WWF, but it's also only a little bit less than what WrestleMania 11 got the month before. So considering how bad that was, for this show to have almost equal numbers to that, hey, that's a pretty good sign. Vince McMahon and Doc Hendricks, aka Michael Hayes, are on the call for this one. This is the first pay-per-view that Michael Hayes would call. He only recently debuted for the WWF under this character, maybe a couple weeks before this. Big haircut, they got rid of his beard, and Michael P.S. Hayes of the Freebirds is now Doc Hendricks, and he's interesting to listen to on commentary. He uses a lot of words that at first I think are made up, and some of them are, but then you actually go and look at the dictionary. Oh, okay, this actually is a word that exists. Good for you. And of course, one of the biggest hooks of this show is that you could actually win a house at the In Your House pay-per-view. More on that when we get to that point. The Tonster is backstage in the promo zone with Bret Hart. He's getting ready to take on Hakushi in his first of 2 matches this evening. Bret says that Hakushi is unbeaten, so he's definitely good, but he's no excellence of execution. He says he's going to beat Hakushi, then he's going to go on to beat Jerry Lawler, and he's dedicating this match to his mother, who's going to be happy to see Lawler get whomped. So like I mentioned, Bret's got his working boots on tonight. 2 matches, and the first one is against Hakushi. This all began a couple of months ago when Bret won an award from WWF Magazine, and Jerry Lawler, who only recently returned to the company after his legal issues down in Tennessee, made him lay low for a while, so he's back now, and he immediately restarts his feud with Bret Hart that got cut off at Survivor Series 93. And he's saying, Bret, the Japanese votes weren't taken into account when you won that award. You're a racist. What a weird leap of logic that is. And then Lawler convincing Hakushi that Bret is a racist, and that's what caused Hakushi to attack him. And that's what brings us this match here. I haven't seen many Hakushi matches, but I love his music. The whole presentation is really cool. And it seems it's been confirmed in later years by people in the know, but this gimmick of Hakushi definitely feels similar in ways to The Undertaker, kind of a polar opposite. It's the black black, it's the white, and the music's kind of similar. They even both have managers who wear whiteface. The match starts out with some solid graps, big USA chants in the match involving Japanese and Canadian wrestlers, Hakushi throwing his whole body behind a shoulder tackle. I love that. Feels kind of rocky in the beginning of the match, but things do clean up later on. Hakushi with some throat thrusts, which allow him to take over. Bret takes that trademark chest first bump in the corner as Jerry Lawler looks on in the split screen. The modern day kamikaze with a single Bronco Buster. Bret's pulled outside and the manager Shinja gets to stomping. Some more cheap shots later in the match. Beautiful flying headbutt by Hakushi. Bret barely able to kick out. Hakushi goes for a springboard splash, but Bret gets out of the way, starts busting out those signature moves. The leg sweep, the bulldog, the backbreaker, the elbow. Starts to put on the sharpshooter when Shinja once again distracts. I love in this matchup in particular how the crowd is so connected with Bret. Like, they will scream their heads off at the moment that Bret is possibly in peril. Like when Bret's turned around to Shinja and then Hakushi's getting up to jump him, the crowd's like, blah! Like they're going crazy for that. Shinja with another trip. Bret says F it and dives on top of him. Back in the ring, then right back out as both guys tumble over the top rope in a suplex. Shinja with some really blatant cheating once again, setting up Hakushi for the Asai moonsault. Asai means kamikaze. Bret counters the waistlock into a victory roll and he gets the win. And we get pyro as a result. Oh man, is everyone gonna get that when they win? Bret celebrates, but as he leaves the ring, he appears to injure his leg. Oh no! I give it 4 stars out of 5. This is a great match. I mean, it does start off a little rocky at first, but once they find their groove, they're on. And it tells a great story. Hard to find a bad Bret Hart match, honestly. I have a feeling, though, that the match he's going to have later on with Jerry Lawler is going to have me feel opposite feelings as to this one. Todd is back in the Superstar Line zone with Stan Lane and women's champion Alundra Blaze. Suddenly in comes Lawler. He wants that match with Bret right now. Todd reminds him that Bret is on his way here to join the hotline. Then Jerry claims his beeper went off and he's gotta go. We toss to co-host Stephanie Wyand coming out the front door of the In Your House house. And she's going, boy, I was just taking a look through this house one more time. This house that's definitely here and not a set I just walked out of. And she's showing off, the big tub on the stage with all the mailed entries for the In Your House contest. And to really show you more of the legitimacy of this contest, they show you footage of an armored truck and a police escort delivering the contest entries. Very legitimate. All 340,000 of them in that big bin. And of course, they got a police, detail looking over it. And these 2, I'm guessing lawyers, paralegals who are going to monitor it as well. Up next, a handicap match as the Intercontinental Champion Jeff Jarrett and the Roadie take on Razor Ramon. This was meant to be a tag match with Razor and the 1-2-3 Kid going against Jarrett and the Roadie, but unfortunately a couple weeks before this show at a dart match, the Kid suffered a broken neck, would be out of wrestling for a little while. At the age of 22, it's pretty scary, but luckily he would go on to recover and have a lengthy, successful career in spite of that. But he is out of action for this one. It's going to be a handicap match. They mention on commentary this is actually the first handicap match in pay-per-view history for the company. And I'm like, really? That blows my mind. It took them till 95 to get there. Also, while this has been going on, Jarrett has been feuding with Bob Sparkplug Holly on the Action Zone over the Intercontinental title. Jarrett won the match with Holly's foot under the ropes. The match was restarted. Holly won the match with Jarrett's foot under the rope, so the bell was held up and Jarrett will win the title back the following week. We actually get this moment before the match begins where the 1-2-3 Kid is on the phone talking to Vince and Doc Hendricks, and he says he wants to be there so bad he can taste it, and he can't wait to get revenge on the Roadie and Jeff Jarrett. Like, well, you will get revenge on Jeff Jarrett in 1998 for that hair match at SummerSlam, and the Roadie will actually be on your side by then. Razor's in the promo zone talking about the match. It's the first time it's been advertised as 2-on-1, but he says it's been 2-on-1 this whole time between them, and this time it's personal. He says Jarrett's going down for himself, for the Kid, and he wishes a happy Mother's Day to Mama Ramon. Razor's on the attack early on, fighting with Jarrett at first. Roadie jumps Razor from behind on the outside. Razor fighting back, hitting that fall-away slam. Roadie breaks up the pin. He's finally tagged in for his first official in-ring action. He does some elbow drops, does a little dance. Roadie is already the big highlight of this matchup. He is, for someone who has not had an official match yet, now that he's getting to kind of feel himself in that environment, I think he's doing great in this match. Razor takes all sorts of heat, but he starts to make his comeback on Jarrett. He goes for his edge, but his backdrop to the outside appears to hurt his knee. Roadie dives onto him for good measure. Razor somehow avoids the count out. Jarrett keeps pouring it on. Ramon keeps fighting back. We get a double down, and one guy on hard cam's trying really hard to start a chant. Another double down, then another one, really putting over the beating Razor's taking as he can't keep the momentum going. Roadie gets the tag in, he's back on top. Razor begins to rally back. He hits the Roadie with the back suplex off the top, but Jarrett is still the legal man. The figure four is countered. Jarrett collides with the ROA single D. Razor's able to hit Jarrett with his edge, and he gets the 3 count. He wants to give one to the Roadie, but Jarrett attacks the leg and puts Ramon in the figure four. Suddenly in comes Aldo Montoya, who has recently been feuding with Jarrett on television. Yes, the Portuguese man of war with the jockstrap on his head comes to help out Razor, but he is immediately shit-canned for his efforts. Then in comes, who is this man, storming the ring. They're acting like he's a fan and this is not part of the show or whatever. Police are involved. They don't know who this man is yet, but this is the official debut of Savio Vega, the Puerto Rican superstar, under this version at least. He'd been in the WWF prior to this as Quang under a mask, so this is the first time we're seeing Savio Vega as himself here. And we're going to circle back to him a little bit later in this review, but I'm going to give this match 3.5 stars out of 5. Again, I love the story here, just the way that Razor sold the beating, the 2-on-1, the inability to make a tag to a partner, I think was just conveyed really well. And I think that Jarrett and Roadie are such an entertaining tandem at this point, and to see him get, like, for the Road Dogg to get that first bit of official in-ring action, and, you know, the fans still want to see him get beat up. Like, he didn't quite get his comeuppance on this night, but you know it's coming. I think it was just very well done. Backstage, Jerry Lawler's up in President Jack Tunney's face. He wants that match with Bret Hart right now, mister. But then we go to a hype package all about Sid, how he laid out Shawn Michaels after WrestleMania, how he was introduced as the newest member of the $1 Million Corporation, beating the hell out of Razor Ramon, just showing off his very devastating arsenal. I thought it was really effective at making Sid look like this absolute deranged stone cold killer. That in a promo we're going to hear from later on tonight. But if you just walked in on this show and you'd never seen Sid before, that would be terrifying. Up in the stands, we see Barry Dudensky selling a fucking sweet all over print Bret Hart t-shirt. That looks awesome. And just for $20, what a steal. On to the first King of the Ring qualifying match for the year as Mabel takes on Adam Bomb. Mabel and Mo of Men on a Mission turned heel shortly after WrestleMania. They beat up the Smoking Guns, they beat up their manager Oscar, and that was the last time we saw him. And now this is the beginning of the big heel push for Men on a Mission. Meanwhile, I'm of two minds about babyface Adam Bomb. I almost think that this is more fun and more interesting of a gimmick than like the heel monster version of Adam Bomb, and maybe it's because I wasn't there. I wasn't a fan when I was 10 years old. But I can see a guy who looks like that looks cool as hell to a 10-year-old. He's throwing the footballs out, little atom bombs, and I thought his mushroom cloud pyro was pretty cool as well. What did you think of babyface Adam Bomb? Did you think it was a cool gimmick back then? Mabel sends Adam Bomb crumbling with a couple of shots before the bell. He gets an early advantage, but AB fights back. We get a slingshot clothesline that looks not so great. The top rope version, much better. Mabel hits his spinning heel kick and a big old front slam for the win in this very short match. I'm going to give it a half star out of 5. All hail the future king, everyone. This is Adam Bomb's final pay-per-view appearance for the WWF until the year 2001. But if you want to hear more about that, you can go watch my Unforgiven 01 review. Todd is back in the superstar line zone, chatting it up with Razor Ramon. Who's this guy who saved you? And Razor says, say hello to Savio Vega, and says he almost didn't recognize him. It's been too long. Savio says he couldn't take what Jarrett and Roadie were doing to him, so he had to help out. And Ramon says, they fought in the past, but he's glad he has him on his side. I think this is a great way to introduce somebody. Like, he comes off as legitimate right away because he's a big dude. He's running off Jarrett and Roadie and all this stuff. He looks tough as hell. And to be introduced as like the friend of Razor, kind of being slotted in to replace 1-2-3 Kid at this point, I mean, that's a phenomenal way to bring somebody in. As the Smoking Guns have already made their entrance, spoiler alert, Jerry Lawler storms the ring and demands his match match with Bret happen right now, but it doesn't. Anyway, in a match for the WWF Tag Team titles, Owen Hart and Yokozuna take on... Wait, we have a shot of Bret Hart selling his knee now, everyone. Looks pretty dire. Anyway, in a match for the WWF Tag Team titles, Owen Hart and Yokozuna defend against the Smoking Guns. Back at WrestleMania, Owen challenged the Guns for the tag titles. Mystery partner was revealed, and it was Yokozuna back on TV for the first time in a while. And now, with this rematch in place, the whole story is no element of surprise anymore. The Guns are prepared for Owen and Yoko, and the match begins thusly. I do love how Doc Hendricks is continuing the mythology that Owen created the sharpshooter. Billy's off to a hot start against Yoko before tagging in Michael Barton. Nice double team maneuver by the Guns on Owen. Owen's making a fuss, causing the ref to get distracted. Yokozuna tries to capitalize on the outside, but he just eats the ring post and is briefly knocked out. This allows Billy to tag Bart back in. Another double team move, but they take too much time to cover, and Owen kicks out. Bart misses a dive and flies out of the ring. Owen and Yokozuna's manager, Jim Cornette, gets up on the apron and eats shit, while Yoko hits the leg drop to Bart on the floor. Owen covers and pins to win and retain. I give the match 2 stars out of 5. I thought it was okay. I wish the match had gone a bit longer, but Owen can only wrestle 2 guys by himself so much. This was definitely a time when Yokozuna has dropped off as a performer. He's still very physically imposing and still visually impressive, but he's not the same performer, doesn't have that same kind of quickness, and you could tell this match was built to kind of hide those weaknesses. It reminds me a lot of, latter era Andre the Giant teaming with Haku. It's the same principle. Get somebody who's more active and more healthy to kind of, bump around you and do the work for you. And I think that like Owen and Yokozuna and Jim Cornette together, it's a great sauce. It's a great combination, but it's just sad to see where Yokozuna has fallen. Pettengill's backstage with WWF champion Diesel. He's asking, what is he thinking right now? Diesel says he's thinking about it being his first Mother's Day without his mother having passed away several months earlier, wishing a happy Mother's Day to all the mamas out there. And Todd's asking, hey, how's the lower back feeling after what Henry Godwin did to you yesterday on Superstars? Diesel says he's feeling great, and he says Sid's got to be stopped when it comes to his wake of terror and the people he's beaten up, like Shawn Michaels. He goes, Sid's the ruler of the world? Well, I'm the walrus. Cuckoo Kajube. Oh man, what a cool baby face. So in the weeks leading up to this show, Jerry Lawler has said he was going to bring his mother to the event because, hey, it's Mother's Day weekend. I want to bring my mom. And so finally, he's there in the ring with his mother, and it is very much not his mother. It is this clearly younger model woman that he is with. Well, this is a weird kink of Jerry's I'm just now finding out about. Mama Lawler says, with absolute fear in her eyes, she would be so proud if Jerry beat Bret tonight. Then she's going to challenge Helen Hart. And then Jerry says, now give me a kiss for good luck. This is just weird. In the promo zone, Todd's asking Bret, how's the leg doing? Bret reveals, 100%. Gotcha, bitch. So now we go to that match, the second one of the evening for Bret as he takes on Jerry Lawler. And this is an angle, it's a feud that goes back 2 years prior to this at King of the Ring 93 when Jerry beats up Bret after he wins the tournament. And, again, they were supposed to have that team match at the Survivor Series. Jerry gets in trouble for alleged statutory rape, and they just pick up right where they leave off when Jerry comes back to TV. And so he's once again needling Bret, invoking Stu and Helen Hart and all that. And so he says he issued a challenge to Bret, for In Your House, but Bret took that match with Hakushi. He's ducking me. He's ignoring me. And so Bret says, okay, asshole, I'll challenge you. I'll take your challenge and I'll wrestle the same night I wrestle Hakushi. And so that leads us to the whole injured leg thing, shades of King of the Ring, where Bret is kind of selling an injury in the first round and it carries through. So you're, oh my gosh, because Bret gonna be good and Jerry smells blood. And then when you see Bret making his way out to the ring to reveal the leg's okay, Jerry looks like he's royally fooked and the match is on. Great line by Doc Hendricks where he says, the acting on Lonesome Dove paid off. Bret is all over Lawler at the start of the match, but Lawler catches the hitman and nails his pile driver, but Bret gets up pretty quickly. Okay then, Bret continues to put on the beating, hits a pile driver of his own. Suddenly we see Shinja on the apron. The referee gets up to chastise him. Suddenly Bret whipping Lawler into the ropes. Great stunt work by Hebner here, getting hung upside down on those ropes. Bret's got it won when Hakushi shows up and attacks the hitman. Man, multiple flying headbutts, one of which I swear the ref can clearly see, Lawler with the roll-up, the pin, and the King wins the match. I give it 2 stars out of 5. This is some good old school bullshit. You know, Jerry Lawler, I think, is one of the quintessential, chicken shit heels of his or any era. You want to see him just get maliciously beaten up by Bret after everything that he has put him through. And once again, Jerry manages to escape. And this is going to lead to the Kiss My Foot match at King of the Ring the following month. That will be the blow-off to this feud, but it is definitely it's a fun story, frustrating for a fan, but, fans get the payoff 1 month later. We get a very uncomfortably close Sid promo. He's right up there in the lens telling Diesel that his time has run out and a new man will be crowned champion. You will become a victim. Nothing you can do. No one will help you. Chilling shit here. But first, Todd and Stephanie are on stage to plug the big vacation home they're giving away. They grab some rakes to mix up the entries. Todd picks Stephanie up and puts her in the bin as she grabs a winning entrant. Here come the lawyers to verify the eligibility requirements. How are we doing? We're good.
We're good.
Todd tries to call the winning number, but shades of $1 Million Mania, the first time it doesn't go so well.
Told you to be by your phone.
Yeah. Please check number.
Oh, we gotta dial again!
Oh, no!
The second attempt gets a ring, and we find out 11-year-old Matt Pompacelli from Henderson, Nevada has won the contest. The fans in attendance do seem genuinely happy because they're cheering big time for when the winner's announced. That's a really cool moment. They even have pyro in the ring for a guy who's not even there. So what happened to the In Your House house? Well, it turns out the family actually sold it only 6 months after the fact because the family had just moved from New York to Las Vegas and they couldn't handle the added expense of a second home. So they sold it for actually a little more money than what it sold for when the WWF had bought it for the contest. And according to the guy who won, the money from that helped pay for his college tuition. So not a bad return. Main event time as Big Daddy Coolada Diesel defends the WWF Championship against Sid, aka Psycho Sid. Well, how about this? I did not intend for this to happen at all, but I'm actually doing 2 classic pay-per-views in a row where Kevin Nash is in the main event for the world title. 2 very different matches, mind you. So the night after Mania, Sid, the bodyguard of Shawn Michaels, brutally attacked HBK and took him out of action. Shawn was being written off to get surgery, and it turns out this was all a scheme planned by the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. It was DiBiase who suggested to Shawn Michaels, you should get a bodyguard in Sid, and so now they decide that the closest way, the easiest way to get to the championship, to get to Diesel, is by beating up Shawn Michaels. So Diesel makes the save on that Raw after the 3 power bombs, and sure enough, he is stepping up to defend his buddy's honor. After a stare down, Diesel strikes first, knocking Sid on his ass. He's continuing the offense. Sid just stands there like a statue, taking everything. Still kicks out at 1. DiBiase distracting Diesel, which allows Sid to hit a big knee lift and send the champ to the outside, slamming Diesel spine first into the ring post, then a big running kick to the dome. The assault continues as DiBiase's on the outside going crazy. The camel clutch, which Doc Hendricks says will disenable Diesel from hitting the jackknife. There's one of those weird words of Hendricks that actually exists, but he also calls DiBiase a plotician frequently in the build to this, which is not a word as far as I know. Diesel fights out, but only briefly. Back into the camel clutch he goes, Sid making some wild facial expressions as Diesel fights out of the hold, only for him to take a choke slam. He hits the powerbomb, should be all over, but Sid's doing too much grandstanding and a hot dogging, and that gives the champ a chance to kick out. Diesel makes a fiery comeback. He hits the jackknife powerbomb, goes for the cover, but then Native American Tatanka Buffalo comes in and stomps at Diesel, causing the match to end in a DQ. The $1 Million Corporation continues the assault, but Bam Bam Bigelow comes out to make the save against his former team as the show officially comes to an end. I'm going to give it 1 star out of 5. The thing with Kevin Nash and Sid is that for both of them, their value and their quality as in-ring performers is directly related to who they're wrestling any given time. And when you have 2 people who are like that going against each other, the chemistry is not going to be there. It just doesn't mesh well. It felt really clumsy. And just for it to end in a DQ to try and save Sid's credibility in that, I think is kind of weak. They will have a rematch at the following In Your House pay-per-view, and Diesel will win that one outright. And so Sid will eventually win the WWF Championship, but by no means with the help of Ted DiBiase. And now it's time to go to the Coliseum video exclusive matches for this event. There were actually 4 dark matches on the show. 1 took place at the beginning, then 3 at the end. 2 of the post-show dark matches made the cut for Coliseum video. And now these matches won't contribute to the overall grade for the show because they're not their dark matches, but might as well talk about them here since I had access thanks to Coliseum video. We go to the first match as Kama, the Supreme Fighting Machine, takes on The Undertaker. Kama's rocking those big chains, formerly The Undertaker's urn, as we saw what happened at WrestleMania 11. Great sign here, by the way. Kama, die! Taker starts strong against his opponent, hits the current school early on, but Kama dodges a leaping clothesline and takes over. Lots of that methodical offense. On the outside, Undertaker's distracted by DiBiase and ends up throwing himself into the ring post. Kama does some more damage. Kama with a half crab for the longest time, which Hendricks says will disenable the tombstone. The Undertaker fights out of that and the bear hug. We get this double down. The dead man starts to rally back, hits his big leaping lariat. He goes to the tombstone, but Kama's able to hit a suplex. Taker does the sit-up. He dodges the boot, hits the choke slam and a tombstone for the win. 2 stars out of 5 for me on this one. This is a standard Undertaker match. Not a bad thing. It's just that's pretty much what you get here because it's a dark match that doesn't really, it's non-canon essentially. So yeah, I think Charles Wright, Kama, he's a great foil for Undertaker and works really well with him here, I will say. And in our final match of the VHS, we see former $1 Million Corporation member Bam Bam Bigelow hoping to get some revenge against his old teammate in Tatanka. After the events of WrestleMania 11, where Bigelow lost in the main event to Lawrence Taylor, his stock was dropping rapidly in the corporation. He did have a title match against Diesel on an episode of Raw, but once he lost that one, DiBiase, he either kicked him out of the corporation or Bigelow quit. So they're kind of going with either or, stories there. So Bigelow's out of the corporation and now he wants to get some revenge. Tatanka Buffalo with the cheap shot, but Bigelow is too fast for him. Cartwheel time, staying on top until Ted pulls the top rope down, sending Bam Bam tumbling to the outside. Tatanka with a Samoan drop on the floor. That looked like it hurt to land. Bigelow barely rolls back into the ring. Tatanka continues the offense. He's got a sleeper hold locked in for a while. We get a hope spot for Bam Bam. Tatanka locks it back in. Bigelow fights out of it and hits the big sit. I love this double cross body spot where the two just crash in midair. That was so cool. Tatanka hits a DDT, as Vince describes, of some consequence. Goes to the flying nothing, but Bam Bam cuts him off. Bigelow hits one of the scariest looking second rope sunset flips I've ever seen and pins the Buffalo Man. Damn, the $1 Million Corporation fucking sucks. I like the hard-hitting nature of this matchup. Told a good story. I think it's a great babyface performance by the newly turned Bam Bam. A nice storyline statement for sure. That said, my grade for In Your House the First is a C+. I think it's, an above average show. It's okay for the first show of its kind, this kind of B-tier level event. The wrestling was okay. I thought the storyline progression was actually pretty solid. A lot of noteworthy things happening on this show when you think about it. And obviously the best match of the night's got to be Bret and Hakushi. The worst match, you could say it's a toss-up, either the main event or Mabel and Adam Bomb, but at least that one was just like a short match, like less than 2 minutes. Yeah, like I said, it's fun to look back at this piece of history, seeing where the concept of the monthly pay-per-view really begins. In Your House as a brand is going to carry on for many years after this, and then they eventually will kind of add those different names that we kind of associate now with the non-Big Four pay-per-views, and then it would die for several years and only be brought back during the pandemic in 2020 when NXT did the In Your House takeover, the first one of that. And I thought that was really cool. They brought that back. They brought back Todd Pettengill to host it. That was a really cool callback. I appreciated that for sure. And if you want to see what happens with the WWF on their next pay-per-view outing, well, you can go watch my King of the Ring 95 review right here. But what did you think of the first ever In Your House pay-per-view? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and hit that bell icon for all the notifications. The last time I was here in the Classic Review, I covered the Great American Bash 2000. Well, next time here, I'm going back to the Great American Bash, but don't worry, this show is going to be at least a little better than 2000 because this is the one with flair and funk. That's right, I'm talking about the Great American Bash 1989. So strap in for that one. That's happening 2 weeks from now. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.